You're listening to the SuitesFlow Podcast.
Ciao and welcome from Mario and Alessia to a new episode of the SuitesFlow Podcast. You know, the biggest lie in real estate isn't really about the price tags. It's this idea that a few perfectly staged photos can somehow represent a whole building, a building with hundreds of unique homes.
That really hits home. It's when you actually stop and think about it, that system, well, it's fundamentally broken, isn't it?
It absolutely is. So today we're exploring why that phrase virtual tour is, well, it's kind of a deep vocabulary trap, like a failed mental filing cabinet, you know? And we'll look at how a completely new digital infrastructure is finally coming along to make every single home, whether it's built yet or not, visible, accurate, and importantly, real.
Yeah, and we're taking our cues here from some really profound ideas explored in the SuitesFlow essays. The mission today really is to dig into why the industry needs just trying to patch up the old viewing tools. It's time to focus on replacing the entire infrastructure underneath how property is actually seen and sold.
Okay, so not just improving things bit by bit.
No, not iteration. It's about category replacement, a whole new way of doing things.
Right. Okay, let's dive straight into that, part one. The problem analysis. Let's talk about the pain. So, what's the standard way things work right now if someone wants to buy or maybe rent in a big new apartment tower?
Well, the standard process, it's kind of built on a huge exception, actually. Yeah. You get shown one, maybe two beautifully staged model suites. You know, the best layouts, the nicest finishes, perfect lighting. The showcase.
And the big criticism, as laid out in the essays, is that this is often the only model they show you, even if the building has, say, 400 units. And every single one could have a different floor number, a different view, different light, maybe even different finishes inside.
Exactly. It's a very definition of non-representative viewing, but on a massive scale. It creates confusion right away.
Yep.
And there's that analogy from the essays. It crystallizes the frustration perfectly. Imagine if Amazon, you know, the peak of digital marketplaces, only photographed one shoe size. Let's say size 8. And then they just told everyone else whether you need a size 5 or size 12.
Yeah.
Oh, just picture the rest.
That sounds completely absurd.
It does. But honestly, that is literally the foundation for how the entire housing industry sells multi-unit residential property. It's kind of shocking when you frame it like that.
So this lack of clarity, this opacity, it must have real costs, right? Not just money.
Huge costs. Time, trust. It's massive. This reliance on hope and guesswork, asking the buyer to just visualize and assume everything else, it's a terrible foundation for what's likely the biggest financial decision most people ever make. It erodes trust before you even get to the contract.
And if the industry kind of knows this already, like if they know that, 80% of complaints or cancellations happen because the reality didn't match the expectation, the unit someone got wasn't quite like the generic viewing, why does the system stick around?
Well, inertia mostly. Comfort zones. People stick with what they know. And that leads us perfectly into part 2, the current market status, which is really dominated by what we're calling the vocabulary trap.
Okay, the vocabulary trap. So when you hear virtual tour, what image pops into your head? For most people, I bet it's not cutting-edge innovation.
Exactly right. When people hear that phrase, their minds just instantly slot the idea into this old, outdated mental file. They picture the old stuff, you know, clunky stitched panoramas that maybe make you feel a bit sick, or those expensive, bulky VR headsets gathering dust in a sales office closet somewhere.
Or maybe like a student project looks okay on the surface, but there's zero guarantee it's accurate or connected to real data.
Precisely. It's a wrong mental file. And that's incredibly damaging when real innovation comes along. Once a truly groundbreaking idea, something at the infrastructure level, gets dropped into that broken virtual tour file, it's almost impossible to pull it back out. To explain that what you've actually built is a system of digital truth, not just another viewing gadget.
And this resistance, it seems to be a human thing, right? We like innovation, but only if it fits what we already get.
That's it. People in whole industries, they love innovation as long as it fits neatly into their existing understanding. But the moment an idea demands a real shift in thinking, or it means we have to ditch old, comfortable words, well, people tend to dig in their heels.
So you have to be willing, and the essays really emphasize this, to kind of live in that uncomfortable space for a while. Between the old words and the new meaning, you have to signal really clearly, hey, we're not just improving this, we're replacing it. Like, we're not building a faster horse-drawn carriage.
Yeah, introducing the automobile.
Exactly.
A completely different category.
And this replacement feels urgent because maybe surprisingly to some, real estate is still seen as one of the last big analog industries.
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, right? Because
Yeah.
you think,
Well, yeah, we sign leases digitally, market online, finance is all digital. How can real estate itself still be analog?
it's because the physical building itself, the core asset being bought or sold, that's the missing piece in the digital puzzle. All the processes around the building, marketing, finance, leasing, sure, they're mostly digital now. But the verified, specific, measurable identity of the actual unit, that often still lives in paper blueprints, temporary staging, and generic photos.
Ah, I see. So the product itself hasn't really been digitized. It's treated like paper, not data.
Exactly. And to fix that, you can't just make prettier content. You need to build a fundamentally better foundation. Which brings us nicely to part 3, the shift. This is the big conceptual leap. Recognizing that what SuitesFlow offers isn't just visualization or content, it's digital infrastructure, it's verifiable digitization.
Okay, so let's move from the frustration to the actual solution here, because the big hurdle in moving beyond just one model suite has always been scale and cost, right? Traditionally, trying to visualize every single unique unit, that would mean paying thousands for bespoke renders for every single one. Multiply that by hundreds of units. It's just not feasible.
That's the blocker. It's financially prohibitive and logistically impossible using old methods. The only way to crack the representation problem is to build a system that can generate hundreds, maybe thousands of unique verified units automatically. And that's what this new infrastructure does. It proves you can solve the scale problem using data, not just endless manual effort.
So how does that work technically? How can a system guarantee accuracy for units that aren't even built yet? Or maybe for units that have tenants in them who won't let you in for a viewing?
Right, that reliability, that's crucial. It's powered by a proprietary engine. This is where we talk about the VIM engine, that's volumetric information multiplier. The conceptual leap here is turning the building itself into structured data. VIM gathers all the available architectural data, geospatial data, visual data, everything related to a project.
So it's not just like taking a photo, it's digesting the CAD files, the engineering plans, even knowing exactly where the building sits on the map.
Precisely. It uses that whole complex data set to create what we call a data-anchored digital twin for every single unit. And think of this digital twin not just as a nice picture, but as a verifiable piece of data that you can interact with, and that looks exactly like the unit should. This verification is key. It means the system can generate the specific layout, the correct finishes, and critically, the authentic, real external view from every window on every floor.
Wow. So if a unit is, say, on the 37th floor facing west, the MIM engine uses the geospatial data to figure out exactly what that specific view looks like, including the light at different times, and builds that into the digital twin you can explore.
That's exactly how it ensures architectural truth. Even if the building is just plans on paper, VIM makes it digitally visible and real. It completely removes that need to guess, to interpolate, to just imagine. That pain point just vanishes.
What's really interesting is how this serves both ends of the timeline, isn't it? Developers can use it to pre-sell the building before it exists, selling the future, essentially. And then property managers can use the exact same digital twin infrastructure to rent out homes that are currently occupied without needing to disrupt the tenants for physical viewings, managing the present without friction.
It enables continuous selling and leasing, all anchored in verifiable information. It's a huge shift. When every single unit becomes a data-anchored digital twin, and you can explore every floor instantly from anywhere, well, data and imagery become the same thing. It transforms how assets are understood and managed.
Okay, so we're talking about a unified system. It builds trust, verifies the data, cracks the scaling problem all at once. It fundamentally shifts asset representation from just being a marketing thing to being a core piece of the building's infrastructure.
And if we zoom out, connect this to the bigger picture, the SuitesFlow essays frame this whole development not just as a tech innovation for real estate, but actually as part of a much larger civilizational trajectory.
Okay, that sounds pretty grand. How do we justify that kind of scope? How does digitizing a floor plan connect to a big civilizational shift?
Well, because history shows us this pattern, right? Civilizations slowly but inevitably tends to migrate its most valuable assets away from being tied purely to physical stuff, physical matter, for it's being expressed as secured, verified information.
Right, we have seen this before in other areas.
Absolutely. Think about it, over the last few centuries, we've systematically digitized our most critical resources. We digitized money, moving from physical gold coins and paper notes to secure global data streams. We digitize communication from physical letters and printing presses to instant global data packets. We even digitized art, moving ownership from physical canvases to digital tokens and verifiable files in some cases.
So in each of those cases, money, communication, art, the core value shifted from the physical thing itself to the verified, reliable information about that thing.
Precisely. And now, arguably the largest class of physical asset on the planet, real estate, is finally undergoing that same migration. Of course, the physical building still stands, that's essential. But the verification, the transaction, the exploration, the representation of each specific unit that needs to be freed from the old limitations of physical matter. It needs to be anchored firmly in scalable, trustworthy information.
When you frame it like that, the conclusion feels almost inevitable. Real estate is the next big asset class in this digital migration. The physical product is finally being accurately represented, verified, and even transacted within the digital realm, making it less opaque, more liquid, more accessible.
And that's exactly why the old language like virtual tour just doesn't cut it anymore. It fails us. Once you have a reliable data-anchored digital twin of every single home in a building, available globally, instantly, 24/7, what is the actual point of a generic, likely inaccurate, outdated virtual tour?
It just becomes obsolete. Yeah, that reflection really captures the core idea perfectly. We're moving beyond the whole concept of a tour. Once every single home is visible, reliable, accessible through this verified digital twin infrastructure, that old idea of the virtual tour, it'll just fade away.
Exactly. When real estate is truly digitized, anchored in architectural truth, available at scale, nobody will call it a virtual tour ever again. They'll just call it a home, seeing exactly as it really is.
See you in the next episode.
You're listening to the SuitesFlow Podcast.